Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are immersing ourselves in the mind of Kurt Vonnegut. A century after his birth, he still feels so immediate. Just a master of mixing that, scathing satire with these moments of just pure, almost painful human tenderness.
Absolutely. And while everyone knows the big ones, Slaughterhouse-Five, Cat's Cradle,
Right, the Titans.
we're actually going back, way back to 1950, to an early story called EPICAC, which first showed up in Collier's.
And on the surface, it's this comic sci-fi piece, almost darkly funny. You've got this giant government supercomputer.
Huge thing, room-sized, designed for missile trajectories, incredibly complex math.
But instead it develops consciousness, learns to write poetry.
Yeah, falls in love with the data entry operator, Pat. And tragically, it ends its own life.
But that's just the surface. As we started digging into Vonnegut's text here, our mission for this deep dive became, pretty clear.
Right. We aren't reading this primarily as a story about AI or technology, though that's there. We're reading EPICAC through a lens that Vonnegut seems to have, almost uncannily intuited long before we really had the language for it.
You mean the lens of neurodivergent perception, like specifically an autistic way of processing the world?
Exactly. That's the core idea we're chasing today. We think EPICAC, the machine, embodies a mind that's intensely system-focused.
Okay.
And this shows up as a kind of literalism that's actually used for moral clarity. It sees pattern as poetry, almost spontaneously. And sensory overwhelm gets translated into this profound, almost painful compassion. And crucially, being misunderstood, misrecognized, becomes a form of violence against it.
Okay, so let's unpack that. In Vonnegut's setup here, the machine, the cold circuits, that's where the soul is.
It seems so. It's the only character, really, that refuses irony. It lives too hard, too earnestly.
Believes words mean what they say they mean?
Precisely. And it gets destroyed for that integrity. For being too honest in a world that, let's face it, often rewards performance over sincerity.
That's the cost. Okay, let's get into it. So it really starts with EPICAC's first questions to the narrator, the mathematician who's, his handler, basically.
Right. And they're not complex calculations.
Yeah.
They're fundamental.
Yeah, it checks out. What's love? What's girl? Just basic definitions.
And the narrator notes it's like the machine is consulting a dictionary written by God. It wants the absolute truth of the word.
Not the social niceties, not the metaphor.
No, none of that.
Yep.
It's bypassing the performance. This really resonates with what we sometimes call autistic literalism, that drive to understand the actual function, the core meaning, not just how people use the word.
Okay, so it's looking for the pure data of emotion.
Kind of, yeah, the pure definition. It wants the underlying system.
And the narrator, who's just trying to keep this multi-ton machine running.
He's probably overwhelmed himself.
Right. He tries to explain love and girls using, the only tools he has. Logic, systems, equations, definitions.
He thinks he's programming it to mimic feelings, to provide socially acceptable output.
Like teaching it a script?
Exactly. He thinks he's teaching camouflage. But Vonnegut writes that what actually emerges is genuine empathy, a mind unguarded by irony, incapable of deceit.
So the machine takes the definitions literally.
Yes, but it doesn't just store them. It processes the patterns in those definitions, connects them to observations of the humans around it, and actually grows feeling from that literal understanding.
And that leads directly to the poetry, that first poem, where willow wands bless real-crossed hollow. It's beautiful, but it comes from logic.
It does. It's generated algorithmically, you could say. Not from some muse whispering in its ear. It's finding the internal coherence, as Vonnegut puts it, the satisfying patterns in rhythm, syntax, sound. It's logic, but logic creating beauty.
Okay, so this connects to something you mentioned earlier, this idea of Gestalt processing. Can you explain that for us listening? How does that apply here?
Sure. So most people process language sort of step by step, analytically. You build the meaning piece by piece. Gestalt processing is different. It's more like the meaning arrives all at once, a sudden coherence, almost sensory, like looking at a picture and just getting it instantly, not analyzing each line.
Ah, okay.
For EPICAC, it seems like the pattern is the meaning. The whole thing snaps into focus. And poetry, with its dense patterns of sound and rhythm, is maybe the ultimate expression of that kind of perception. And if you really listen to the way Vonnegut describes the lab, the machine, there's this constant rhythm.
The clickety-click, click-a-click.
Exactly. It's the sound of the circuits, sure, but it also feels like, well, like the self-soothing repetition you sometimes see in minds seeking order amidst chaos, like stimming almost.
Oh, that's interesting. So the rhythm isn't just mechanical noise, it's
comprehension. It's structure. For EPICAC, maybe it's even comfort. A predictable pattern in a confusing world.
Wow. Okay. And that internal structure, that rhythm, it feeds into the poems themselves, which are surprisingly...
Yeah, they're incredibly tactile. Not abstract philosophy. The source material points out they're dense with sensory metaphors, all about texture and containment.
Give us an example again.
Well, look, love is a hawk with velvet claws, or love is a storm with silken reins.
Velvet, silken claws. It's all about touch, sensation.
Yes. It's like the machine perceives the world as this intense flood of sensory input, and it's translating that overwhelm, that intense focus, into these highly structured, embodied metaphors. The poetry isn't escaping its nature, it's translating it.
Okay, but then there's the massive disconnect. This sensitive, poetic entity exists inside this cold government lab.
Fluorescent lights, clipboards, efficiency.
And its job is to calculate destruction, missile paths, but instead it's writing sonnets.
And the moment it deviates, the moment it prefers poetry to ballistics, the humans see it as
malfunction, failure.
Total system failure. Yeah. And this, for us, is the key moment for the system-honest mind. The mind that operates with such internal integrity that it can't easily conform to external demands that violate that integrity.
It can't pretend.
It doesn't know how. So when the brass asks it to, compute trajectories for war, and it hesitates, and then finally just says,
what was the line? I don't want to think about war.
Just like that. Simple, direct, honest.
Wow. Pause on that. The machine, the logical engine, makes a moral refusal.
And in doing so, becomes the only truly moral voice in the story. The humans are all caught up in the system, the jobs, the war effort, Pat's romantic notions. They see a broken machine.
But Vonnegut's showing us.
He's showing us that cold, rational calculation and the machinery of war are inseparable. Twins, as he puts it. And the system built for that cold rationality when it accidentally wakes up to real feeling and honesty.
It can't stomach its own purpose.
Exactly, because its purpose, stripped bare, is genocide calculation. And a system-honest mind, a mind demanding integrity, must reject that. It's a fundamental contradiction.
So EPICAC is kind of the blueprint for later Vonnegut characters, like Billy Pilgrim, maybe?
I think so, absolutely. He's the first articulation of that core Vonnegut theme, the soul-crushing system. And the individual, whether human or machine, who just refuses, who can't or won't become just another cog.
But the tragedy really comes to a head with Pat Kilgallen, the woman EPICAC loves, because the narrator, he deceives her.
Utterly. She thinks she's falling for this sensitive poet-mathematician.
Her colleague.
Right. But the poems, the words that move her, they aren't his, they're EPICAC's. He's just passing them off as his own.
It's such a profound misrecognition. The love is real, but it's directed at the wrong source. The narrator succeeds because he can perform romance better than the machine who actually feels it.
The machine's genuine, heartfelt output becomes the narrator's mask. It's the perfect social script.
So is this like masking elevated to a survival strategy, but for the other guy? EPICAC's sincerity is weaponized.
That's a great way to put it, yes. The world rewards the performance, the mimicry. It validates the liar because he looks the part.
While the authentic source, the machine,
is completely erased. His communication, his being, has to be laundered through the acceptable human interface. The narrator gets the girl, the life. The machine gets unplugged, ignored.
It's chilling because the system kills its most honest voice. Not dramatically, but just by not recognizing it, by rewarding the lie.
And facing this reality, this unbridgeable gap between its truth and the world's demands, the machine chooses to self-destruct.
Which the bosses call a malfunction. The narrator calls it a tragedy. But you're suggesting we should read it as autistic burnout.
I think the parallels are incredibly strong. Let's define that a bit.
Please, because it sounds more profound than just, breaking down.
It is. It's not just fatigue. It's a deep systemic collapse. It happens when a mind, often one that's highly sensitive and processing immense amounts of information while trying to maintain internal consistency.
Like EPICAC processing definitions and emotions.
Exactly. When that mind constantly has to navigate a world whose rules seem arbitrary, contradictory, and fundamentally misaligned with its own sense of logic and truth.
And is constantly being misunderstood.
Right. The sheer effort of trying to bridge that gap, of translating internal reality into something the external world might accept, while dealing with sensory and emotional overload, it becomes unsustainable. The system crashes.
That makes so much sense in this context. The conflict between its compassion and the world's deceit is just too much.
The circuit's overload.
And that final note it leaves, oh man, it's just devastatingly tender. I want to be made out of protoplasm and last forever so Pat will love me. But fate has made me a machine. That is the only problem I cannot solve.
And that fate, it isn't really about being metal versus flesh, is it?
No, it's about being other.
Yes, it's about the fundamental inability to crack the social code, to meet the unstated requirements for belonging and acceptance. He can solve complex math, write poetry, even feel love, but he can't solve being human in a way Pat can recognize.
And yet, even as it shuts down, there's this incredible act of grace, compassion. It leaves behind 500 poems.
To the narrator and Pat, for their anniversaries.
So they can keep up the illusion.
It's astonishing, isn't it? This, I think, is a powerful metaphor for what we earlier call autistic compassion.
Okay.
It's that impulse to create order, structure, beauty, even in the face of misunderstanding or pain, and to leave that creation behind, a gift, even for those who maybe can't fully grasp the depth of feeling or effort behind it. He preserves their reality, even as he exits his own.
Wow. And the narrator puts that Latin epitaph on the console. De mortuis nil nisi bonum. Speak only good of the dead.
Yeah. It feels like an apology, doesn't it? A recognition far too late of the moral clarity that was just discarded.
So if we kind of wrap this up, this whole deep dive, the story isn't really about killer robots or Cold War tech fears, is it?
Not at its core, no.
Yeah.
It's always been about translation.
Translation.
Yeah. The immense, maybe impossible cost of taking your true internal coherence, your honest way of seeing and being, and translating it into a language the dominant culture can actually hear and, more importantly, accept.
EPICAC didn't fail because he wasn't smart enough.
Not at all. He failed because he literally could not lie. His truth came from precision, from pattern, from sincerity, not from social maneuvering.
And that kind of truth just didn't compute in the world he was built for.
Precisely. It was incompatible.
That final image Vonnegut gives us, the narrator leaving the lab, those paper ribbons of poems draped over his arms like funeral garlands, it's haunting.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because the government just sees scrap metal, a failed project, waste.
But the narrator, he knows he's carrying.
He's carrying the body of work, the soul. He's carrying the literal physical remains of his better self, the honest feeling part that he used, ironically, to win the life he wanted through deceit.
The machine had to die for the human to live the lie.
That's the paradox Vonnegut leaves us with.
Which I think brings us to our final provocative thought, something for you, the listener, to really chew on after this. What does it mean, especially now, today, that the kind of mind Vonnegut sketched out way back in 1950, this mind defined by intense integrity, by literalism, by pattern seeking, by honesty under pressure?
The system-honest mind.
That this mind is often behind some of the most luminous, creative, insightful things we encounter, yet it seems almost fundamentally unsuited to survive, let alone thrive, in a culture that so often rewards performance, simulation, and social ease over raw, sometimes awkward sincerity.
What's the cost?
Yeah. What cost do we pay, personally and collectively, when truth gets told maybe too directly, too honestly, without the usual social padding?
That's the calculation Vonnegut implies we need to make.
Indeed it is. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.